It's my pleasure to welcome you to the third annual Captain Nichola Goddard Leadership Roundtable, which highlights women role models in the Canadian Armed Forces and raises essential monies for the Captain Nichola Goddard Fund. This is the first time we have hosted our event online, and we're really pleased that you're here with us today. Bennett Jones is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this event, and I'd also like to acknowledge our gold sponsors, Alamos Gold, Amazon, BMO, Canso, HSBC, Hydro One, and Heatherdale Resources, as well as our silver and bronze sponsors. We wouldn't be able to host this event without their support and yours. We are looking forward to a very meaningful event today, especially given the time we are in, and with our first ever woman Vice Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Frances Allen, who was appointed fittingly on International Women's Day. We also recognize that due to the pandemic, women's participation in the workforce sits at a 20-year low. We hope the lessons shared and learned today can be taken back and applied in our workplaces to support leadership journeys, particularly during these challenging times. Speaking of journeys, this marks my 8th year of volunteership with True Patriot Love. I was a member of the Foundation's signature expedition in 2016 to climb Vincent Massif, the highest peak in Antarctica. Truly a profound experience for me. And I've had the privilege and good fortune to have participated in 2 Canadian Leaders at Sea programs hosted by our Royal Canadian Navy, including a civilian host of the first ever all-women Canadian Leaders at Sea in March of 2019. These experiences and others have given me insights into the fantastic capabilities and the deep commitment of members of our Canadian military. It is my honor today to welcome Kate Rusk and Brigadier General Krista Brodie to our program. They will speak in succession, then we will move into our breakout room roundtable discussions facilitated by accomplished members of the Canadian Armed Forces. Kate Rusk, joining us from Vancouver, is Captain Goddard's sister, and she serves on the True Patriot Love Disbursement Advisory Committee. Kate will share a message on behalf of her family about the impact and importance of the Captain Nichola Goddard Fund. Following the message from Kate, we will be joined by Brigadier General Krista Brodie, a fellow WXN winner, is the commander of Military Personnel Generation Group for the Canadian Armed Forces. Over the course of her career, Brigadier General Brodie has served in key command and staff positions, been a paratrooper and a professor, deployed on international operations in Croatia, Bosnia, and Afghanistan, and joined domestic battles against floods, ice storms, forest fires, and the pandemic. Brigadier General Brodie has recently returned from secondment to the Public Health Agency of Canada as part of Operation Vector, the force's support to federal, provincial, and territorial governments for the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. Brigadier General Brodie will be sharing perspectives in leading in ambiguous and challenging times and how we bring order to chaos. Before I call on Kate and Brigadier General Brodie, we have a quick word from Nick Booth, CEO of True Patriot Love, and then we'll go directly to our main speakers. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank everyone for joining today's roundtable and for taking part in what I'm certain will be an important and insightful discussion. I must start by offering my sincere thanks to Claire Kennedy and to all the National Committee members for making today possible. We're deeply grateful for your advice, hard work and willingness to lean in despite the challenges of the pandemic. I must also thank our presenting sponsor, Bennett Jones. This is the 3rd year you have stepped up, and we thank you for your continued support and dedication to the Captain Nichola Goddard Fund series. Nichola was an inspiring leader, and we're very proud to be working closely with her sister Kate and the Goddard family. We're grateful to them for having entrusted us with the management of the fund and to take forward Nichola's legacy on behalf of all the women who followed her in the Canadian Armed Forces. It is also a great honour to have Brigadier General Krista Brodie with us today and to give the keynote address. General Brodie, we know how much you have on, both with your regular duties and all you have been doing additionally to help Canadians during the COVID-19 health crisis. We very much appreciate your time and your insights. In particular, I would like to thank and pay tribute to all the women of the Canadian Armed Forces who will be helping facilitate the conversations in today's breakout discussions. We have an extraordinary group of women with us, and it is a privilege to be able to share in and learn from your unique perspectives and experiences. I'm sure everyone present today will join me in thanking you for this and for your service to Canada. It would be wrong for me not to refer to the significant publicity in recent weeks regarding the issue of inappropriate sexual behaviour in the Canadian Armed Forces. True Patriot Love is clear that women in the Armed Forces, like all professions, have an absolute right to fulfil their careers in safety and free from abuse of any kind. And we stand in full support of all those who have suffered, who have spoken out, or have yet to do so. True Patriot Love is pleased that the Armed Forces leadership has accepted the need for change and to ensure it has a culture which is not tolerant of any form of harassment, sexual misconduct, racism or discrimination. Women make up 15% of the Armed Forces, and as such their experiences and challenges are unique. This is why True Patriot Love is proud to run the Captain Nichola Goddard Fund, which gives a platform for the role of the women in the Armed Forces and provides funding to community programs that support women military members, veteran women and their families who need help in their journeys of recovery, to deal with physical or moral injury or to regain a sense of personal well-being. Finally, thank you to all of you who have sponsored and joined us for today's roundtable. Your participation in events such as this will allow True Patriot Love to continue funding vital programs for those who step up to serve on all our behalves as part of Canada's military. We're grateful for your support, and I'm sure, like me, you're much looking forward to the discussions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. When Nichola was in Afghanistan, we looked forward to her letters home with stories from the field. In one note, she described a 10-kilometer march over a mountain with her team. She was wearing 100 pounds of kit, and the route included 2,000 feet of altitude gain. When they reached the next village, a small crowd formed. Nichola's interpreter came over to explain. "Please excuse their staring," he said. "They are just very surprised that you are a woman working with all of these men. They think that you must be very strong. I explained to them that you are just like the men, and that you can do everything that they can do the same as them. You can do everything that they can do the same as them." We created the Captain Nichola Goddard Fund because Canada needs strong women. We need strong women in our boardrooms. We also need strong women in our military. Canada is one of the only countries in the world where all military occupations are open regardless of gender. But unfortunately, the women of our armed forces face barriers that we as a country need to address. In a 2018 Statistics Canada survey, over 4% of servicewomen indicated that they had experienced sexual assault in the last 12 months. Over 4% in the last 12 months. The Captain Nichola Goddard Fund supports servicewomen, female veterans, and their families by funding community programs that help address the challenges created by a career in the military. Thanks to your support, we have raised over $700,000 and have funded programs from coast to coast. But today is about more than fundraising. Today is about recognizing and celebrating female leaders in corporate Canada and in the military alike, who lead despite the barriers that are placed in their way. It's about finding new strategies and approaches to leading in complex circumstances. It's about together creating a Canada where women thrive, no matter their role. And that is the legacy I think my sister would be most proud of. Shortly before deploying to Afghanistan, Nick gave a book to one of her commanding officers and mentors, Lieutenant Colonel Eleanor Taylor. A specific excerpt from her inscription drives home why we're here today. She wrote, "You have allowed me to develop my leadership abilities while being proud of my gender. You have caused me to view being a woman as an asset, not a detriment, to the team, or to my profession. I can only hope to inspire other women to persevere and take pride in their accomplishments as you have done. Thank you, Nichola. So today, on behalf of my family, thank you for your support.
I'm Brigadier General Krista Brodie. I'm joining you from Ottawa on the traditional unceded lands of the Algonquin people during this fourth week of March 2021. I'm honored to have been asked to record this keynote message for the third annual Captain Nichola Goddard Women in Leadership Roundtable. These are unparalleled times for Canadians and for the Canadian Armed Forces. We have crossed the 1-year threshold of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are living and leading in persistent pandemic times, with all the volatility, uncertainty, and frictions of a third wave of variants of concern while we roll out vaccinations. The disruptions are compounding. Disruptions to our daily lives, to our ways of working, of schooling, of communicating, and of connecting. The strain is palpable and mounting. I see it in my own family as we try to keep our 3 school-age children on the rails. I see it in myself. And now, within the Canadian Armed Forces, the CAF, we are at a strategic inflection point, a tipping point, poised on the eve of uncertain tomorrows, propelled to this point by successive generations of institutional malaise regarding the spectrum of sexual misconduct that is pervasive in the Canadian military, and nudged by the recent allegations against successive senior leaders. We are on the edge. Of all the things that we will speak of in the course of this Women in Leadership event, in this time, this has to be one. There is something pressing to be acknowledged here. It must be acknowledged that there has been suffering, that there is suffering, that the scourge of sexual misconduct that is perpetuated in the shadows has caused indelible harm to many, many people, women and men, gender fluid and non-conforming, members of the LGBTQ and Two-Spirit communities, and to the institution. There has been suffering and silence, sometimes from those who we most need to hear from. It must be acknowledged that the survivors of military sexual trauma need to be heard, to have their experiences honored in safe spaces, to have their stories sit heavy on our hearts, to speak their truth and cut through shame to compel change. It must be acknowledged that our individual and collective acts of commission, the things we have done, and of omission, the things we have not, have caused our culture to stray from the better valors of the profession of arms, from the core values and ethical principles that we uphold as Canadians. It has undermined our operational effectiveness. It has eroded trust. It has corroded the public trust in a venerated and necessary national institution. We must be bold. We must fix this first. We do not have the luxury of just getting on with business without first acknowledging our precarious position on the edge of a precipice of our own making, without first acknowledging a commitment to decisive, sustained, enduring action. We must aspire to a vision of the CAF, of a Canada, where there is zero tolerance for inappropriate conduct, no room for toxicity, where every person is treated with dignity and respect, where sexual misconduct in all of its manifestations, where racism, discrimination, hateful conduct in all forms is anathema to the norm. We are, each one of us, a culture maker. We hold the power of change in the individual and collective application of our behaviors, our attitudes, our beliefs. Our collective culture will be revealed in our character, in our commitment to continuous improvement and to professional conduct. The civilian-military relationship in Canada is not one of silos or solitudes. It is intrinsically integrated in the Canadian experience. It's a tremendous partnership with incredible potential to bring to bear the best of what our national character and collective competencies have to offer. As we gather in leadership circles, as members of Canadian society, as members of the CAF, as industry and corporate partners, as leaders, as women, it may feel like we don't own the narrative. But to be clear, your story is yours to tell, yours to share in your own ways, in your own words. We are called to share our stories, to build the connections that make us stronger, that allow us to recognize and celebrate inspiring and resilient women, to enable excellence, and that will also allow us to grieve and, in time, to heal. The connections that offer a sense of community when we are otherwise not well supported, when voices are not heard, or when those who are hearing are not equipped to know what to do, and so do nothing, or do or say precisely the wrong thing. The connections that offer compassion, that confirm that our contributions are valued, that we are valued, that give us the confidence to know unequivocally, without a doubt, we belong. As for these strange times rife with ambiguity, we are made for these moments. The CAF is built for crisis conditions. But more than that, the women of the CAF are built for these times. We thrive in chaos and uncertainty. We rise to the challenge against all the odds, even when the obstacles seem insurmountable. We understand the landscape, the competing demands, the primacy of operational necessity, the human dimensions of conflict and caring. As well as anyone and better than most, we are resilient beyond measure, even when vulnerable in the moment. We bring order to chaos. The CAF is in the business of building leaders equipped to lead in times of crisis, leaders with the characteristics, the competencies, the qualities and traits to rise at all levels of the organization and provide calm, coherence, cohesion. We are finally honed in crisis leadership. And it is clear right now that there are leaders in crisis, but do not conflate that with a broader crisis of leadership. There is incredible depth and capacity at all levels in the organization. And there are generational leaders who will advance into the fray from within and from without and lead us forward. And like those gathered at virtual tables today, their message will be clear and unequivocal, a clarion call. They will exercise leadership with humanity and humility. They will live and lead by our better valors. They will collaborate and communicate, take informed risks and innovate. They will prepare, and they will make the decisions necessary to propel change. And like you, through the crucibles of shared experience, of celebration, of hardship and suffering, through dispersion and disruption, We will build strong teams. We will build forward better. We will seek not a transactional end state, but a transformational new way of being. In our shared humanity, in all the different ways we serve and contribute to society, we will find meaning. We will find our voices, find each other, and if we are lucky in so doing, we will find ourselves. It is not a bridge too far. In forums such as these, we are building bridges, raising awareness, sharing and seeking expert advice and counsel, fundamentally reimagining the way ahead. We are listening and learning, building leadership capacity across our Canadian enterprise. It is a personal and professional quest for identity and belonging, for dignity and justice and enduring affiliation. And in this space, there is a critical role for initiatives like the Captain Nichola Goddard Fund, initiatives that directly support service women and veterans and their families, empowering them to have a positive impact in Canada and around the world. Acknowledgement is, in part, an act of remembrance, and it seems fitting as we gather in this community and capacity building enterprise to honor Nichola's life and legacy, to remember that there is a tremendous story still to be told. From where we are in this moment, assembled on the line of departure, in echelons wide and deep, by land and air, by sea, cyber, and space, by steel and stealth, in complexity and cacophony, in simplicity and silence, in the CAF and in Canadian society, with certainty that there will be accountability, there will be atonement, there will be healing and hope. There is a story yet to unfold. With this reckoning, there will be reconciliation, restoration, regeneration. If Nichola were here today, she might be standing in my shoes, or she might be standing in Eleanor's. Each of us afraid, but fearlessly united in conviction and commitment to making this organization, to making Canada worthy of her sacrifice. Nichola's legacy of leadership in action lives in each one of us, no matter how or where we serve. In the stories we share, in the warp and weft of our collective commission, the tapestry born of common purpose. Now, more than ever, we need to connect, to reflect, to support each other as we rise to the privilege of leading in these times, through these times. We all have a role in building a better CAF, a better Canada, and a better world. Thank you.